Okay, there we go. All right. So, have you guys seen? I'm going to share screen. Have you guys seen the MPH trainer knowledge test?
No, I haven't.
No. Okay. So these are the things that I need to you guys to be able to answer for Mick to be happy. And so this is kind of what we. So last week we went through protein. What is protein? Why is it important? What are the ranges we use? We got up to the ranges, and then we had some things to unpack around that. So we'll go through, do a bit of revision, and then get to that. And then the next lot is carbohydrates. What are carbohydrates? Why are they important? And what ranges we use per kilo of body weight? And then we go into fats. So there's a range of things to get through. So we'll do a bit of a recap over everything that we did last week, and then we'll get into carbs. Sound like a plan?
Cool.
All right. So where's my mind map? Okay. Can you guys see a mind map?
Yeah.
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 All right. So, um, all right. Big picture nutrition. So we went over last week the elements of the minimum acceptable things you have to get in place in a nutrition plan if it's some form of fat loss or body recomposition is the goal. So I'll bring up. Should I bring up the diagram? I'll bring up the diagram. Here we go. The hierarchy of nutrition and success. Can you guys see that, or you can still see a mind map?
Go see a map.
Yeah, map. Okay. See the pyramid?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So, energy balance. Dana, are you familiar with the concept of energy balance?
No.
Not yet. Okay. Bailey, you want to fill her in on energy balance?
So that's just like with what we're burning day to day and then what's coming in.
Correct. Exactly. So it's basically the balance of energy that we expend through all the activities that we do in our life and our training, weighed up against the energy that we consume through foods. And so, if some sort of fat loss is to occur, there has to be. Hello, mate.
How you going?
How are you? That froze
Sorry I'm
looking
late. Sorry I'm late.
better and better.
I'm just you fine. Yeah,
Yeah, so if fat loss is some part of the goal, there has to be a deficit of energy. So the core principle of a fat loss program, fat loss nutrition plan, is that the client needs to be expending more energy through their life and training than they're consuming through their food. Once you have the energy balance set up, then you can set your macronutrient ratio, which would be the distribution of protein, carbohydrates, and fats that make up the total calories that the client's consuming in their plan. Next is the micronutrient or the food quality. So, what sorts of foods make up that plan? Um, and this is where a little bit of the if it fits in your macros stuff can kind of work into it. So, it's not optimal to eat unhealthy foods, but fat loss can be achieved eating some unhealthy foods, provided the deficit of energy is in place and ideally they have enough protein through their macronutrients. So you set the energy balance, distribute protein, carbohydrates, and fats, get them eating good quality foods, and then nutrient timing is basically the timing of the meals and when they eat them. And so out of those four things, the timing of meals is the least important. But as we discussed last week, if you have a client who's more advanced and they're progressing, then the timing of when they eat becomes more important. So the more important the goal and the bigger thing they're trying to achieve, the more important these factors occur. But at the bare minimum, you got to get the energy balance in place first and foremost. That's the most important thing. So that's the sort of the big picture overview. And then we went into protein. So I'll go back to the mind map and we'll look at that. That's all making sense to you, Josh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Just like a recap of last week, yeah.
Little recap of last week. You can see the mind map.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll start with you, mate. What is protein?
It's a amino acid. It helps with building muscle. Um, yeah.
Okay, not bad. Not 100% correct. So, amino acids do make up proteins, but a protein itself is a sequence of amino acids. So, amino acids are the building blocks that make up a protein.
Right.
But you're correct. It does help building muscle. Soph, what do you think protein is?
Um, it was trying to remember a molecule that
Just
is made up of amino acids,
correct.
and I think it was provides enzymes in the body.
Enzymes are involved.
Yeah.
So, if one of your clients were to ask you what protein is, how would you answer them?
Um,
Like total newbie, getting in the gym. So, like, I know I have to eat all this protein, but like, what is it?
oh shit, I don't know.
Okay, that's
I
cool.
don't know how I would respond to that.
Yeah, well, it's worth thinking about, and so we'll go through it again. Bailey, what's your answer?
Yeah, I would say that protein is broken down into all amino acids are broken down, and that's what makes into protein. And not only does it help with building muscle, but it also helps with optimal function for the body, helps fight back any viruses, and it does a lot other function. It does a lot of support for the body's functions, but I can't remember exactly what else.
Yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. Let's get in there. Dan, I know you weren't here last week, but if one of your clients was to ask you what protein is, how would you answer them?
I would say it's one of the three macronutrients, and it's essential for recovery and building muscle. And protein helps keep you fuller throughout the day.
Yeah, okay, that's a good answer. That's one of the simple things we didn't actually cover last week, but yes, it's one of the key one of the three main macronutrients. That's a really good answer. So remember the Google definition: a protein is a molecule made up of amino acids. Proteins are needed for the body to function properly. They are the basis of all body structures: skin, hair, and other substances such as enzymes, cytokines, antibodies, and hormones. I think, Josh, you asked about enzymes last week, so I put an answer for enzymes. Enzymes are proteins that act as a biological catalyst to bring about specific biochemical reactions. So remember last week I said that enzymes are used in all the chemical reactions that go on in the human body. So there's trillions of cells that you have, and they all perform their separate functions. Enzymes are these things that catalyze all the processes that go on. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
not critical, but because you asked, I'll chuck it in there. So we know that protein, a whole protein, is made up of amino acids, and at the base of the amino acids is nitrogen. So that's not critical. I just put it in there because so you have a full grounding of what actually makes up an amino acid, and that amino acids make up proteins. So that's kind of where we are with what is protein. But if one of my clients was to ask me what is protein, I would say protein is a macronutrient. It's made up of amino acids. I would say that there is dietary protein, which is the food that we consume, and the structural protein, which is the protein that actually makes up everything that we are. And that we, from a training perspective, when we train, we're breaking down and remodeling muscle tissue. And for that muscle tissue to regrow and repair and build, we need an adequate amount of protein that we consume to break down into amino acids to then go around to the body, and for those amino acids to be used in the repair and recovery process to rebuild the muscle tissue. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
All cool?
Yeah, cool.
Cool. All right. Why is it important in the body? So, Bailey, you listed a few things there. So, apart from the fact, so this is what I would say to my clients about this. I would say, Protein is used in all of the major systems in the body. It's used for the digestive enzymes that support your digestive system. It's used in all the functions of your immune system. It's used by the liver to filter your blood. It rebuilds your hair, your skin, your nails. Everything that the body needs to function on is required. It needs some level of dietary protein. And so we need to have a minimum amount to cover all of those chemical reactions and all the functions the body needs, and have a surplus left over to actually recover from training and build muscle tissue. Right, so this is where we kind of got up to. What are the ranges that we use? So, the minimum ranges. So we had a look at minimum and maximum, and then we've got the MPH ranges. So minimum 1.2 to 1.6 times your body weight in kilos. The max, you could go up to 4 times your body weight in kilos. So we'll do a couple of calculations. Josh, how much are you weighing now?
90.
90. All right. So let's go minimum amount for Josh would be 90 times 1.2, 108. 108 grams of protein. So that's really on the skinny side, and you wouldn't get away with all the training that you do on 108, I doubt. But if we go to the max, 90 times 4, 360.
Goddamn.
That's a ton. And you don't need that much. You could.
No, I don't want that much.
No, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So the ranges that you guys are using are 1.8 to 3.2. So when you're figuring out your protein targets for your guys, for your clients, those would be the ranges that you're working in. So for Josh, 90 times 1.8, 160. Reasonable. He could get away with that. On the top side, 90 times 3.2, 290. What are you currently eating at the moment?
I'm not really tracking at the moment, but when I was eating protein 250.
250, yeah. So that's about right. So that's probably around that 3 mark. 90 times 3, 270. So you're probably like 2.8 or something like that. Okay. So do those numbers kind of make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you would, when you were creating your nutrition plan for you guys, you'd figure out how many calories you wanted them on, and then you would have a look at those numbers, those ranges, do a calculation on this scale weight, get 1.8 and get the 3.2, and then you know what numbers you'd be working in. So.
Yeah.
So how do you guys, I guess we should talk about how to actually set the calories. How are you guys establishing what sort of calories to set for your clients?
We have already like templates that Mix made, so we can put their energy expenditure, what we think they're doing during the day. So then I think there's like, I don't think there's metabolism, but there's stuff like that calculates it for them.
Yeah.
So then it calculates maintenance, and then we just should decide how much percent of a deficit we choose to want them in, and it does it for us.
Yeah.
But usually with protein stuff like that, we would go on a calculator, do 1.8, and then go from there.
Okay. So you'd use the template to establish probably the numbers he's probably given you is their BMR, so their basal metabolic rate. So there are 2 formulas to do that, or there's a few, but the 2 main ones are the Katch-McArdle formula and the Harris-Benedict formula. And they're basically, you can just go online and type it in, but it's what you guys do in the template. You put in their age, their weight, their height, whatever it is, and you'll get spat out a number. And so BMR, Josh, do you know what BMR is? Like the basal metabolic rate, like what that actually represents?
No, I've heard of it, but no, not really.
Okay. Soph, do you know what the basal metabolic rate means? No. Dana?
Is that the amount of calories you burn without doing anything? Like.
Pretty much, yeah. So the basal metabolic rate is the amount of calories that your body would burn at complete rest and with no food. So it's like the amount of calories that you sort of need to actually function and exist. So it's your, like you said, it's before you factor in any exercise or any movement, the amount of calories that would be needed to keep you alive if you were in a coma in a hospital kind of environment, sleeping, doing nothing. They'd hook up a drip with nutrients to give you a certain amount of calories, and that minimum amount to keep you going is what's known as your basal metabolic rate. So when you're putting in those numbers in the MPH template, it's probably spitting out their approximate basal metabolic rate. So then you're timesing that by what you think their activity level is. And so if they're a super active person, say they're a labourer and they're out on the tools, then they'd be, or they're an athlete and they play sport outside of their training, and they've got and they're super active, you would times that. I think the top number is 1.9, so he's kind of looking at between 1.2 and 1.9 times their basal metabolic rate for the sort of minimum and maximum numbers. So if they're super active, you times that BMR by 1.9. If they're very sedentary, sitting at a desk all day, don't walk around too much, don't move very much, you would times that BMR by 1.2. And if they're kind of moving around a bit, you just pick a number somewhere in the middle. But kind of what Bailey was saying, you guys just think, you make a bit of an estimate as to what sort of calories you think the individual needs. And it ends up, I reckon, 90% of my male clients that go onto a fat loss program, probably starting somewhere between 2,300 calories and 2,500, maybe 2,400. It's usually around about that. For the females, it's probably more 1,700 to 2,000, kind of around there. So these are the rough numbers that you start with. And you pick your calories and you get your client going on that, and you check their scale weight and their skin folds as the weeks progress. If they're not dropping, they're not losing weight, and the weight's staying stable. If the weight stays stable, then the amount of calories you're giving them is probably representing just an even baseline of energy balance. So they're basically burning and the same amount as they're consuming, so their weight is just staying stable. If the scale weight's going up, it could be that they're super good responders to weight training and they're just building some muscle, and there might be some body recomposition actually going on. But it may, if they're not actually dropping skin fold and the weight's going up, then there's too many calories. They're in a surplus of calories. So the energy balance is in surplus, and you'd have to readjust. If the scale weight's going down and the skin folds are going down, then you've set a nice deficit to initiate fat loss. And then you could choose what you do there. You could keep them on those calories until the fat loss plateaus, then start pulling some away and let them go deeper. If they're, super hyper aggressive and they want to lose as much fat as quickly as possible, they've dropped a bit, but they're feeling good, they're not too hungry and everything's going well, you could push them a little harder and take a few more calories away. But you just got to pick your place to start. So you use your template, put in their numbers, get their BMR, times that by the minimum max ranges, 1.2 to 1.9, pick a number of calories that you think is appropriate for them and get them started.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yep.
Okay. So once you've done that and you've established their calories, then you've got to set their protein. So I've got a couple of case studies. 91 kilo male, fat loss client. An approximate BMR for someone like that's around about 1,800 calories. So, and then I've got a 67 kilo female fat loss client. BMR for someone like that, say they're in their say they're 30, it's usually around about 1,300 calories. So that's the minimum number that we're starting with. So if we go to this guy here, so say he's we'll do the minimum and the max, right? So the BMR 1,800 times 1.2 is 2,160, 2,160, and the max, so 1,800 times 1.9, 3,400. So 3,400 would be Like to achieve fat loss, they'd have to be super active to be dropping fat on 3,400 calories. So you're probably going to be picking a number much closer to that 2,100, probably around about 2,4, 2,6, something like that. So let's say we give him 2,000, 2,500. 2,500 calories for a 90 kilo guy. That's what you're going to start him on. So then we've got to set protein. So how would we go about setting protein? Bailey, you want to have a go?
So I'd probably usually start around the minimum range.
Yeah.
So I'd go then obviously 91.
I'll do the numbers. Yeah, you tell me what to put in. 91.
Yeah, 91 times 1.8.
1.8. 160 grams.
Yeah.
Starting at 160 protein. So does that make sense to you guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course, you factor in obviously their lifestyle first. If they do a lot of weight training, I'd probably go on a bit more, maybe 2.1, maybe 2.2, just seeing, depending their lifestyle.
All right. So let's go 91 times 2.2, 200.
Yeah.
So we're looking at protein between 160 and 200. Somewhere in there. So yeah, you'd look at their lifestyle. You'd see how many meals are they eating in a day, how much protein are they currently consuming, how realistic is it for them to increase their protein intake if they're eating very little. So you factor all those things in, and then you sort of come up with a number somewhere in between that 160 to 200. But you'd be stressing to your client. You'd say, look, these are the numbers that we use for protein requirements. The minimum is 160. So if you're going to start training hard and you want to build muscle and you're here for 13 weeks to get a result, then we need to make sure you get at least 160 grams of protein per day to support all the functions in your body, to keep you healthy and to keep you recovering and keep you growing and responding from training. All good?
Yep.
Josh, how many calories per gram of protein? Not sure?
I'm not too sure, no.
No worries. Soph, do you know?
No.
No? Dana?
4.
How many calories per gram of protein?
4 calories in 1 gram.
4 calories in 1 gram. Correct. So, if we're setting this guy, say we put him between 180 and 200, we give him 180 grams of protein, and we know that there's 4 calories per gram of protein, then we go 180 times 4, means he's getting 720 calories out of protein.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's 720 calories of protein. So out of that 2,500 that we've set him, minus 720, that leaves us 1,800 calories to play with. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you would go about assigning fats and setting carbs, and you would make up that 1,700 calories out of the other macros. So what I should do, protein equals 4 calories per gram. Carbohydrates, carbs. Does anyone know how many calories per gram of carbs?
4.
4. Fats?
9.
9. Correct. So, does that make sense to you, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say, for example, we give him. So if he's eating some eating his fats, eating the protein. There'll be some fat included in all the meat and stuff that he's eating. We get him having some oil and some nuts and things like that. Maybe we're giving him like 100 grams of fat in the day. So 100 times 9, 900 calories. So that would take him up here fat equals, say, 100 grams times 9, so it's 900 cals. So 2,500 total calories minus 720 from protein minus 900 from fats leaves us 880 calories left to hit those numbers. You divide 880 by 4 because carbohydrates are 4 grams per calorie, and that gives us 220. So we would then just assign 220 grams of carbs. Does that process kind of make sense?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And so, do you guys are you given calculations to do for fats and carbohydrates, or is it primarily just the protein that you're doing numbers on? Like in the templates and stuff that you use to design the nutrition plans, does he give you calculations to use to set fats and carbohydrates, or is it just the protein? Yep.
Yeah, he does.
Yep. Okay. So that's kind of the process that you would go through.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Any questions on that?
No, that's pretty.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I
let's
do have to go, mate. I have a client at 4.
no worries, mate. So if you got what's 4 now?
Yeah, it's 4 now. Yeah, and he just came. I just heard him. I'll finish off this video when I get home. The rest of it.
Yeah, no problems, mate. All good. All good.
Awesome.
No dramas.
Thanks, mate. All right.
See you, mate.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you next week.
See you, mate.
See you, buddy. All right. Okay. So we have a 67 kilo female. We know her BMR's 1300. We'll say she's an office worker and she's fairly sedentary. So we times that 1300 by the minimum number, which would be 1.2, and we've got 1500 calories. So we're going to give her 1500 cals. So it's pretty, pretty tight. Not a lot of calories there. So we're being fairly aggressive, setting at 1500 cals. So how would we then go about doing protein?
Maybe go minimum as well, so 1.8.
Yeah, so 1.6. So we go 1.6 times 67 gives us 110, or 107, but 110 grams of protein. And so we know if we want, so how many calories would that be? How will we figure out how many calories of protein we're giving her?
440?
Yeah, 440. 110 times 4. So she gets 440 cals out of her protein. So then 1500 minus 440, it leaves us 1,000 calories to play with fats and carbs. So this is interesting because you'll, let's say, because that's right at the minimum, that 110. If she was training pretty hard and she had a little bit of ability and some experience, and she was able to do some fairly meaningful workouts, and she was training, say, 4 or 5 times a week, she'd probably benefit from a higher protein target. So let's say we went a little higher, say rather than 1.6, say we give her 2. So 67 times 2 equals 134. So we're giving 134 grams of protein in calories, times that by 4, that's 500 calories. 540 calories. So if protein goes high, then we've got less room to play with fats and carbohydrates. So we've just got to always think about how you're going to put this puzzle together. And so if we give her a gram of fat per kilo of body weight, she gets about, say, 67, but we'll give her 70 grams of fat. So if we want to figure out how many calories in 70 grams of fat, how will we figure that out? If you think about down here with the 9 calories per gram of fat. So we take that 70 grams, we know there's 9 calories per gram, so 70 grams of fat times that by 9. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that gives us 630 cals. 630 calories. And then carbs. So how do we determine now how many carbs we give her? What's the process we go through? Josh, you want to have a go?
Times the carbs by 4.
Well, we would do, but we've got to figure out how many
Carbs
grams.
are you doing it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like whatever's left, right? So
correct.
how much was left?
How much is left? So we're giving her 1,500 calories. She has 440 of that out of protein. That leaves us 1,000. She gets 630 out of that in fat. So we minus 630 from 1,000. So she's got 430 calories left to play with.
Yeah, and then times that by 4.
Yeah, well, we divide by 4.
I'll divide by 4, sorry.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So divide that by 4. So she gets 107 grams of carbs.
Yeah.
So by the time, depending on how much fruit and vegetable she's eating and all that kind of stuff, there's room in there for, a little serving of carbs post-workout and maybe another serving of carbs at night time. But you're not playing with a huge amount of carbs there.
Mm.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Josh? Have you done any nutrition plans for any of your guys as yet?
Yeah, I've done like a couple, but I mainly got Dana to help me with my first one.
Yeah.
And then based off that, I've like branched out and like kind of did my own thing a little bit. So like with the carbs, I play around with the like I gave my client like rice crackers.
Yeah.
And then like I gave him like start off with like 100 grams of like rice crackers, and then slowly over time like decrease the amount of rice crackers. You know what I mean?
Right. To create the deficit.
Yeah, for the deficit. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you remember what calories you set this person?
I think it was like 1,000, like 1,800, 1,600.
1,800,
Somewhere around
1,600. Yeah. Male or female?
Female.
Female. Yeah. Well, that sounds pretty good. Around 1,600 to 1,800. And do you know how much protein you gave her?
Don't remember. No, that's fine.
Yeah. And did you go through the calculations, or Dana helped you with that process?
Yeah, I went through it, but it just like automatically like does it. I didn't have to like actually do all of this stuff.
Right. Okay. So basically the templates do all the hard stuff for you.
Yeah, like correct. Like you just put in like their weight, like and all that.
Yeah.
And then it'll do it all for you.
Spit you out the numbers. Okay. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, that's good. So does this process kind of help solidify the reason why you're actually doing this?
Yeah, it helps understand like the breakdown of it and like what it's actually doing when it's like generating those numbers.
Yeah. And this will start to become more important as the clients progress over that 13 weeks or the 26 weeks or however long they're training for. As you need to start making adjustments in calories, that's when you have to start just thinking a little bit about how you piece it all together and what macronutrients you're playing with, what you're going to take away, what you're going to give them. Do you keep protein stable throughout the whole thing? Do you gradually increase protein over time as they start training harder? So all of this stuff starts to come into play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So any questions on any of that? No, that's all good. All right. So we've been talking about carbs a bit, so we may as well have a quick look at carbs. So Josh, have you got to go at 1:15?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. No worries. We'll get a few minutes on carbs. All right. Does anyone, Dana, what are carbohydrates?
Carbohydrate.
It's not actually. These questions aren't easy. Like I know, like they're simple, but even when I look at them, I go, "Well, there's a few ways I could answer that."
Yeah, exactly. You're like breaking it down in your head. You're like, yeah, but it's this. But then it's that, and you're like, oh, but what else could it be? And then I know what you mean.
So I'll ask you, Josh. Like, if you were talking to your
Ah,
to one of your one of your
great. I
clients,
just took that off Donna. Great.
yeah, how would you what would you say?
Uh,
How would you
I,
explain carbohydrates?
I would just pretty much say that like carbs aren't a bad thing because like in most perspectives, like everyone thinks carbs is like a bad thing.
Yeah,
Um, say it's just like it's the main thing that gives you energy throughout the day. And then list all like the carbs that like you get it from, and like good
yeah.
carbs versus bad carbs, being like sugar turns into carbs, that you know what I mean. But I can't like. Is it also an amino acid? No, I'm not sure.
Not an amino acid.
It's not.
No,
Okay.
no. You said the key word. It's sugar.
Yeah.
So carbohydrate. This was my the first one was my I thought the simplest way I would describe it. I went carbohydrates are sugar molecules and one of the three main macronutrients found in foods. So, and then this is a Google definition. Carbohydrates are the sugars, starches, and fibers found in fruits, grains, vegetables, and milk products. So, carbohydrates, when you the same way when you eat a piece of chicken or a serving of protein, and your body breaks that protein down into the individual amino acids. When you eat a carbohydrate, whether it's a piece of fruit or a serving of potato, or you drink a can of Coke, well, the Coke is basically sugar anyway, but your body is breaking down those complex carbohydrates into simpler sugars. So at the very base of what a carbohydrate is, it's essentially a sugar, an energy source. And it's the main energy source that the human organism uses.
What's the like different examples of complex sugars? You know what I mean? Like the
Mm-hmm.
like
Let's have a
yeah.
look.
Oh, right, great.
Yeah. So it's a good question. The obvious question. So types of carbohydrates: sugars, glucose, fructose, sucrose, and lactose. So glucose you find in vegetables and starches, potato, pasta, bread, rice. That's all sort of when that breaks it down to its simple sugar form, it's glucose. There's some glucose in fruits as well. Fructose is the type of sugar that's found only in fruits and honey. So there can be some glucose in fruits, but you won't find fructose in any other forms outside of fruits and honey. Sucrose. Sucrose is more... how to describe sucrose? Let me think. Lactose is the sugars that are found in milks and milk products. So lactose, when you hear about that, like a lactose intolerance or something like that, that's essentially from milk, the sugar in milks. Sucrose, I'm having a mental blank. I've totally forgotten what sucrose is. I'll have to look it up. Doing my head in.
Sounds like it should be like a Mexican name. Sucrose.
Sucrose.
Sucrose. Hey, puppy.
No, it's just cane sugar. Cane sugar. So you find sucrose in it, like it is in fruits and some vegetables, but it's the pure source comes from canes, so cane sugar. So they're your sugars. Then you get your starches: rice, wheat, grains, potato, cereals, all that kind of stuff. So really the starches, these sorts of carbohydrates, these are the ones that we want our clients on more often than not. And then, Josh, your question about complex versus simple. Here's the definition. So a complex carbohydrate is carbs found in whole, unprocessed foods, including fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains. So a complex carbohydrate is when we get it in its natural source. And simple sugars have been through a process of refinement and had all the fiber and the nutrients stripped away, so you're just left with the sugar. Oh. And so simple sugars are the things that you'll find in sweets and soft drinks and all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
And so from an energy balance perspective, do you, Soph, I'll ask you, is there a difference in terms of calorie intake whether I have, a can of Coke that has 40 grams of sugar or 250 grams of sweet potato that has 40 grams of carbs?
Um,
Like from an actual calorie perspective?
I'd say, I think yes.
No.
No.
No. So carbohydrates, 4 calories per gram. So whether that gram of carbohydrates comes from 4 grams of table sugar or, a bite of or half an apple or however many carbohydrates it takes to get a, from an apple or a piece of potato, once it's actually digested and been through the system, it's still the same caloric amount.
Okay.
So a starch, a more complex starch, takes longer to break down. There's more fiber and there's more nutrients around that carbohydrate, so it takes longer for the gut to digest it, and the sugars themselves get into the bloodstream a little slower and more evenly. If you drink a can of Coke, there's no real processing or digesting to that sugar because it's already so refined, so it's straight into the bloodstream, and you get that like a higher blood sugar response, a higher insulin response from that. So it's better for our clients to be having starches, but in terms of the overall energy balance, once they hit the system, 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates, no matter where it actually comes from. Make sense?
Yeah.
Hey,
Cool.
Tommy, I gotta leave now.
No worries, mate. No worries, mate. I'll
Alright.
wrap it up now anyway.
All right,
I'll
sweet.
talk to you next week, mate.
All right, sweet. See you guys
Bye.
later.
See you, mate.
Yeah.
Bye. Okay, guys. Any final questions or anything on carbs or anything else that we've covered today?
When we're calculating carbs, because the
Mhm.
way our templates work and the way that we were taught to put in the like 1.2 or 1.8 amount for the protein, and then it'll calculate how many grams of protein you need a program for,
Yeah.
and then you would do the fat,
Yep.
and then whatever's left over is just carbs. So we don't really need a range for that.
Yeah, I have, the only time I've used ranges for carbohydrates is when I've had like a bodybuilding client that was trying to gain muscle mass, so where I had them in surplus, and so I would set protein, I would give the minimum or required amount of fat, and then I'd be playing with carbs, and the general kind of range for that would be anywhere between 5 to 10 grams per kilo of body weight.
Yeah.
If you were playing with those numbers, but in general, for general population clients, I haven't calculated a carbohydrate per kilo of body weight ever.
Yeah.
I just basically do what you said. I pick the calories, set the protein, assign fats, whatever's left over gets done with carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Anything else?
With the client, how would you explain how carbs are broken down in your body?
In your body. So I would say to a client, if they ask me that question, I would say whatever, I'd ask them, give me an example of a carbohydrate that you eat. So they'd say, maybe I had, potato with lunch. I'd say, okay, so you've consumed that potato. There are digestive enzymes in your gut that will start breaking down that starch, and it will get, as it moves through the intestines, it will get more and more refined, and the body will strip away fiber. It would take nutrients out of that, and then ultimately the final sugar that it gets broken down to would enter into your bloodstream and would provide an energy source, and you would use the nutrients would go off to keep you healthy, and the fiber would help you digest and keep the rest of the food that you're eating moving through, something along those lines. But it all just basically goes through the digestive system. Where it would get interesting was when you start talking about carbohydrates and glucose stores in muscle for training, that kind of stuff. So carbohydrates are the primary energy source or fuel source for humans, and what we use when we're training. And when you're doing lots of reps, your muscle cells are actually burning stored glucose to keep them fueling and keep them working. And so once you've had a big workout, it can often be a good time to eat some carbohydrates, because once those carbs get broken down into sugars and glucose and they enter the bloodstream, they can then go to the muscles that you've trained, and the muscle cells will take that fresh glucose that you've eaten and digested back up, draw them back up in to help recover. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
So for next week, will we be covering fat?
Yeah, so we've still got to, in terms of carbs, we've got to look at why they're important to the body and the ranges that we use. So we'll probably spend a little bit more time on carbs, and then we'll get into the fats.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Anything else? Or are we good? Good. Great. All right. Dana, I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Soph, have a good week. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, you too.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks, guys. You're legends. See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.